So 2020 and 2021 have definitely been quite the year. And with all these lockdowns going on, me and my girl decided to watch, some old school movies throughout the year, through from the 1940s on. Just, I enjoy watching old school flicks. I love black and white films. So, we just love just sitting back, throwing up some popcorn and just, watching some old school movies. But I will say that one thing that has got me really fired up this month is, this is that time of the year where everyone decides to be prideful on who they are and who they love. And, I am not that much of a fan of polyamory. I mean, it's nothing against anyone that follows it. It's just for me, I'd rather love one person. I'd rather love and be faithful to one person. I don't want to have to do that to multiple people. But that's just me. So in regards, I just wanted to do a review on one of my favorite 1940s flicks. This movie is definitely in regards to how people's love lives are being taken nowadays. This movie pretty much portrays it in probably one of the coolest ways of just the people dealing with, the inner thoughts and what you go through when you are in love with multiple people, But pretty much this movie is called My Favorite Wife, and it's exactly what you would think of. It's just a guy that has two wives, and he has to decide which one is his favorite. Now, yeah, I know that sounds kind of like a ridiculous concept or the plot to a story, but remember, this is the 1940s, so it was a lot more of a different time then. Like, people didn't necessarily, polygamy and bigamy wasn't that much of a thing. People only had one spouse. They only had one husband, one wife. That was their thing. If you had multiple ones of those, or if you were cheating or doing something like that, you'd be looked down upon. And people in 2020, they don't really like you talking about not being able to love multiple people or not being able to do what you want in the regards of love. But as far as I'm concerned, that's just, some people aren't about that. Some people just want to have a relationship with someone and they want to love and care for that person. But so let's get into this movie real quick. So My Favorite Wife stars Cary Grant and Irene Dunne, who were some of 1940's best actors and actresses that were in a lot of romantic comedies, a lot of affair movies, and like movies about people falling in love in ridiculous and very obscure ways. And, because it was just not part of the times. It just wasn't, people weren't into that. And if they saw that in real life, they would just be disgusted. It just wasn't something that people were into seeing. But, we can laugh at it now because we understand what they felt. We understand those emotions so much more clearer today. So the movie is about Cary Grant's character. He's a lawyer, and he pretty much was married to his wife for 4 years. He loved his wife. He had 2 kids, and unfortunately, his wife goes missing. She goes missing for 7 years. And that's a long time, right? And he stays faithful. He tries to find her, and he pretty much doesn't. So he ends up getting married to this new woman. His original wife, we'll say wife 1, she was a really grounded, down-to-earth person. She was beautiful. She was fantastic. So he really loved her, which was why he waited 7 years before remarrying. So when he remarried this other woman. We'll call her wife 2. She's definitely pretty, but she's kind of like, the basic bitch. Like, she's just really pretty and she doesn't really care about his kids. She's just like not a gold digger, but she just cares about the fancy side of life versus the family side of life. And he's not really into that, but he still cares about her, and he's been with her for however long. But he did just get married. So that day he gets married, it turns out that his wife 1 comes back home. It turned out she was stranded on this island for 7 years. She went on this science expedition, and the boat she was on crashed or like capsized. So she was stranded for 7 years, and she was able to get on a Portuguese fishing boat and able to get back home. Wild story. 1 in a million chances that would ever happen to anyone, but this happened to that guy. So his wife comes back. She goes home. She finds, she sees her mom. Her mom is shocked. She's so happy to have her back. She sees her kids. She doesn't tell her kids right away that she's the mom. So I love the kids. The kids are probably my favorite part of the whole movie. She tells the kids she's like a family friend. So she starts getting back into her life, and she wants to go see her husband, who is with wife 2 on a honeymoon. So she goes and kind of like crashes the honeymoon, pretty much essentially crashes the honeymoon by just showing up. The husband sees her, freaks out because his wife has been legally dead for 7 years, and here she is standing in the flesh in front of him, and he just got married. So what is he gonna do? So the whole movie is pretty much him dealing with having to break up with his now married wife 2 and keep now brought back alive wife 1. But a lot of course, tension and things happen in between. You know, he finds out that his wife was indeed on this island, but not alone for 7 years. She was with this other man. And now, I don't know about you, but if I was married and my wife was alone on an island with another man and I found that out, I would definitely be like, all right, well, obviously some shit went down that I might not be comfortable with, like, ever, you know, because you and this man spent 7 years together. That's a long time. That might as well be a marriage, you know? So he doesn't really know how to grapple with that. And she tells him, like, hey, you know, then I don't know what to tell you, you know, like we don't really care about each other. And then, you know, she ends up bringing in this man and she tries to say, you know, like, we don't care about each other. And, you know, I want to be with you, you know, her husband, but I was with this guy for 7 years. Like, what did you expect would happen? So there's a couple like deceivery that goes on, you know, the wife number 1 tries to like play it off, but you know that things went down. It's like, it's so clear. But the husband ends up grappling with all these thoughts and just like, you know, he doesn't know if he trusts her and he doesn't know if he wants to be with her. He was faithful, she wasn't, but it's like, you know, you're on an island for 7 years and you don't think you're going to get off of it. What are you going to do? You're just going to like die? I mean, I don't know. You got to survive and have fun, I guess. I don't know what anyone would do in that situation. I hope I never get fucking stranded on an island, you know? And like I said, if my wife was stranded on that island, I guess I would have to understand, given that we're in 2021, I would be like, hey, I understand. I'm glad you're alive, baby. Like, come, let's go romp in the sheets. But anyway, so the movie, the climax of the movie is where it really takes off, because the wife is so in love with her husband still after those 7 years and being with this other guy for 7 years on this island. And she pretty much gives her husband the ultimatum of being like, look, like, I want to be with you. And if you don't want me because of what happened in these 7 years, that's fine. We don't have to be together, but I do love you and I want to be with you and be with the kids, you know? And so he just can't quite grapple with that. You know, he can't quite he can't quite get his feelings straight with how he feels about that. You know, again, these are different times. People at this time were not ready to deal with stuff like that. They weren't ready to deal with their wife, who they have kids with, being with another person, even if the circumstances were just ridiculous. Like, you can't put her at fault, because what are you going to say? Like, oh, you know, you should have waited for those 7 years. You know, again, it's just, it doesn't really work that way when something like that happens to you. So again, the ending of the movie is just so great. She ends up telling her kids. The guy that she was with, he's a cool guy, and it's just his character is funny. You know, he's like, I was with this woman for 7 years. I feel like I should be with her. And, you know, in times like this, that's when fist fights start going, you know. But again, this was in the 40s, where people were in fedoras. They didn't fight. They talked it out. And like, the dialogue is just so clever. This movie would not be able to be made right now in 2021 without, like, you know, some hardcore LGBTQ influence, you know, like, there's no way that it would be there's no way this movie would be able to be made today without a lot of rewrites, constant rewrites, you know, and reshoots and all that shit, you know. But it's still a great film, and I love movies from the 1940s and 1950s and stuff and 60s, because it just shows how things were different and how life was lived differently. Because remember, every generation thinks they are going to be the next progressive. So in the 30s, people thought they were going to be better than the 20s. In the 50s, people thought they were going to be better than the 40s. In the 70s, people thought they were going to be better than the 60s. You know, so things gradually thought they were getting better, but also people were getting worse, and also people made fun of that shit. People were able to call out that shit because you could see it. You could see society changing. You could see society just going about the times, you know? And so this movie just really, really shows like how we treated love back then. And again, like, I'm not really into the whole polyamory thing. I understand it. I have friends that are in it, and I respect you guys, and I respect the people that love each other and love other people like that, but I just couldn't do it. And this movie really showed me that, like, hey, that's how I would have felt. You know, if I was in that guy's shoes and my wife was gone for 7 years, if I was living in that time period, yeah, I would feel that way. If I was in this time period, yeah, I guess maybe it wouldn't really hit me as much, because I just be thankful that my wife was alive after those 7 years and that my kids would have their mom back. You know, I know sex isn't as much of an issue as it was back then, but nowadays a lot of people still aren't comfortable with just open relationships and open sexuality and open gender fluidness like that, and it's just unfortunate. But I also understand it. I am very biased in the fact that, like, I care about everybody. And I care about this world, I really do. And I say everybody just needs to love. But at the same time, when you genuinely have love for someone and you really do love somebody, it is really something special. And it is really something that you should share with really just one person. And I know that that's going to get me a lot of shit to say that you should love one person. So, you know, I'm just going to I'm just going to run away at this point from this conversation, but I will definitely come back to it. So just be prepared, because I definitely will get into it. But I just love this movie and wanted to discuss this movie because hopefully you'll watch it. But again, it's called My Favorite Wife. It was made in 1940. So take a look and hopefully you enjoy it.